Graeme Pollock was playing first-class cricket at 16. He made his maiden century for Eastern Province at 16 years and 335 days of age. At that time, the youngest man to make a Currie Cup century.
I played our school first side when I was 13, and they played in the men's first league, which was unusual. So I was playing in men's cricket from 13 years old.
I was a fanatic for Australian cricket, and I've always backed them from day one, and the guy that really to me was someone that I followed was Neil Harvey, left-hand batsman for Australia who got so many runs against South Africa. And I think to me it was like a challenge that's what I'd like to do for South Africa, and he was my role model without a doubt.
In March 1963, Pollock made 209 against an international Cavaliers team that included Australian test bowlers Richie Benaud and Graham McKenzie.
Before they came to Australia in 63-4, my last year, I took a Commonwealth side to South Africa, and Graeme Pollock played then. He made double 100 against us in Port Elizabeth. I said to Ron Roberts, our manager, I think we're going to have a bit of a problem with this guy out in Australia.
The innings made Pollock at 19 and 19 days the youngest South African to make a first-class double century. Later that year, Pollock was selected for the South African team to tour Australia. After failures in the first two tests, he made a century in the third.
I was under pressure then. I'd have got 25, and then I think I got 2 and 16 in Melbourne, second test. So, you know, when you're 19 years old and you're on a tour, and it's not a great start. So I think I was under pressure, but I'd got 100 against New South Wales in Sydney, and they virtually were like another test. They had a test side, and Richie Benaud and all these guys were playing for New South Wales. And I got to 100, 120, I think it was, in Sydney. So, I mean, obviously that made a huge difference.
In the fourth test in Adelaide, Pollock made 175, adding 341 with Eddie Barlow.
Eddie got 200, I got 175, and you know, we put on the 341. But I think maybe the point you don't realise, and I think Eddie, in fact, at a function a few months ago at Kimberley, said, you know how long we batted for to get 341? And I had no idea, and he said, yeah, we batted for 280 minutes.
There's no doubt that through that 63-4 series in Australia that Pollock demonstrated that he was a great offside player. People compared him to Hammond as a great offside player, but there was a suspicion that he might have been weak around leg stump.
I always felt he had a weakness around leg stump, but at the same time, his offside play, I think he was as good a player on the offside as any I've ever seen. You know, there was no shot he couldn't play, but it was just his awesome power.
After making 137 at home against the English tourists in 1964-65, Graeme Pollock went to England with the South African team in mid-1965. In the second test of the series, he played the standout innings of the tour. After South Africa had made 5 for 80 on a difficult wicket, Pollock made a dominating 125.
In 65, he played one of the great knocks I've seen on a pitch at Trent Bridge, uncovered, and just like plasticine it was. The rain had got into it. The ball was hitting and stopping, and no one could play a shot. They come shaking their heads and can't play a shot on that rubbish. He went out there and made 125 and didn't hit a ball other than in the middle of the bat, and they just rocketed to the boundary.
I think we were 12 for 2 and then about 40 for 4, and then I think Peter van der Merwe, I think we put on a few runs. You know, it's a funny thing. It's hard to say how you go about it. I never really went in with any preconceived ideas. If you look at the whole test in perspective, that it was significant, and that we won the test, and it was a wicket that the seamers had bowled well, and sides didn't get big scores. So I think in that context, it was probably the best innings I've played.
And I don't suppose you would see another innings from any batsman ever that without a single blemish. There was not a single blemish that I can remember in that innings. It was just perfect. He was such a wonderful judge of length. You never saw Graeme go forward and then come back, or go back and then have to come forward. He just had the absolute length of the ball judged, and he played his shot. And he was hitting this ball with ferocious power. And I think, in terms of pure cricket, I think that's the best innings, technical innings I've ever seen.